Well, here's a request that I get questions about quite often. And this person says, you keep mentioning what's in shadow and what's not in shadow. What about translucent flowers with the light coming through them? Are they included in shadow or not in shadow? I have trouble seeing what's in shadow. Can you explain? We'll try. Well, because this person specifically mentioned translucent flowers, I tried to find flowers that had the light coming through, where the petals are somewhat translucent, and we can see effects of the light coming through the petals themselves. Tried to find a couple examples here in pretty much the same color range. This is about as close as I could come. All that stuff is on pixelbay.com. One of the problems with a lot of the images on Pixelbay these days is that they've all been photoshopped, and you sort of have to pick and choose, and then you have to kind of correct the photoshopping, take the photoshopping out, and to show what would really be there, how the camera would capture it as close to how the eye would see it as possible. So these are, the photo has overexposed, the camera has overexposed somewhat, but they do show the principle. Now, it's usually the backlight that causes the light to come through something, meaning the light's behind whatever you're looking at, and the light is coming through when it's translucent. And that's what the person's talking about. But usually, you don't have that effect if the light is shining on a surface. But here's what happens. It's the light rays, the rays coming from the light source, that cause us to see things in light. It's where the light rays are not hitting the source that causes us to see things in shadow. A lot of people have trouble just seeing stuff in shadow. But if you just look for where are the light rays hitting, where they're not hitting is in shadow, some kind of shadow. Now, so what about this translucent thing? So if the light is coming through there, the translucence of the image itself subdues those light rays somewhat. It's still in shadow. So how would you do that? I will see if I can show you now. Let me show you the comparison, though. And that is, especially, it's evident in this one. And I think this one has been photoshopped beyond what I could take away from it and still have an image visible there. But you can see that the light rays are coming through here. And if I put my little isolator right there in that area, you see that is somewhat darker than above where the light rays are hitting. Can you see the difference there? It's a very subtle difference, but it's nevertheless there. So it is in shadow, but we try to interpret that at that value. The important thing is not to get it too light. So let's see if I can just show you just a little bit of an example there of how you might go about doing that. Now, that image is, we can see it's a red, more or less a violet to red violet. So I'll just pull some white out here first. And let's pull a little bit of violet in there. And see, first of all, if I can achieve that value. Let's see, go over here and get that just a little bit darker right there. And let's see if I need to change that. I'm probably going to have to change the actual hue of that. All right, so if we look at this more closely there, and let's just go down and see what's actually happening. So I was comparing two kinds of stuff, but let's just work with that one for a moment. Now, here you can see the value of that at the top, where the petal is bent further away and not catching quite as much as that translucence. We see something sort of like that, you might say. But then you see it gradually begins to not only get lighter, but that light coming through is emphasizing the redness, and we might be seeing some of the redness of this inner part of that flower too as it comes through there. So let's just pull a little bit of get a little bit of red on the palette, and let's get that value corrected right here so that we can show that little transition. Now it gets lighter, gradually lighter, but I want to show you the difference between how we would mix that color, that value of that color, and how we'd go about handling this one. And so I will put a little bit of red into that, and let's see, is that's in the range? It's in the range, and so get that red a little bit lighter, get that red right there, and begin to blend that up. And we can see that it blends sort of like this. You see, a little kind of like that as it comes down. Now it begins to get even a little lighter, but you see, the point is it doesn't get this light at all. It only will get only receive a certain amount of light because that light is hitting, the light is coming through instead of hitting directly. And so then it will get a little bit lighter, and it gets a little bit, as it comes down, it gets not only a little bit lighter, but a little pinker. Let's pull that out of the brush there to do that. A little lighter and a little pinker. That didn't quite, let me take it a little bit different. Work that a little bit differently right there. A little lighter and a little pinker. And of course then we get that blend. It's a very subtle blend, and we see that a little bit more of the dark coming through right there. Like that. And then as it comes down, we think we see this a lot lighter than it is because we're comparing it with this dark right here. But actually, we're seeing that more like, not like that. We're like this, more like this right here. A little bit lighter. So a little bit lighter. Let's pull it this way. And let's get that subtle blend like that. So you see, you can see the difference now. Now, if I'm going to do this side, I have about a value difference there, or maybe about a half of a degree difference. And I'm just going to place this right here. You see? Little bit of difference in the actual value and really the color of this. You see that right there, this against that. So we got to be careful. If we make it as light as this is, it won't give that feeling of translucence, but it'll just give the feeling of light shining on it. Now I'm going to do just a little bit, put just a little bit of that darker value there. Pull a little bit more of this violet down right here to show you, because we can see this much, see the effect of that much more easily. I think perhaps on that particular one, I think we're probably looking at one where the light has been doctored. I have a feeling on this one that we're not just looking at just at the light source. I think that has been, the lighting of that has been kind of doctored, that they have another light shining in there that's making that a lot brighter than, or a lot lighter there than we would actually see it. But see, if we put this darker value here, then that then gives us that sort of comparison between this. So let's pull that down, make it just a little bit darker right in there, like that, like that. Now, but this on this one, you can see this is more natural. This is more like our eyes are accustomed to seeing it, and you can see there it's very obvious. But we don't have a direct light hitting this one to compare it with. But we can see that value. See how at the lightest part, can you see that is really much darker here? And let's mix that value. What's important to remember is that when you're painting something that's translucent like that, not jump to conclusions that it's very, very light, but compare the value of the actual area that is translucent, where the light's coming through the strongest, with other values around it, and then you're most likely to get it, because the situation does change. Let's see, that one's very, very close. You see, that is much lighter than. The situation changes according to where the light is, according to how close the image is to the light. There are lots of things that can change the situation. The important thing is for you to be able to observe the comparison of the degree, how much value change there is there. Recognize it is in shadow, but there's a value change there that would cause it to push just a little bit closer to what we normally think of as being light. Here's that value right there. This is that value we're looking at. Pretty close to that value we're looking at right there. And then you can see that that value just gets darker as it goes up. Something like this. I'm not going to try to take the time to do the complete rendering of it, but you can see what I'm talking about there. That sort of thing right there. And maybe a little bit darker as it goes up. So, and then of course, then when you get these the correct value, the feeling of that translucence is going to come through. So, all right, maybe that'll give you an idea of how to work that thing out. And just don't worry about the fact that it's in shadow or not in shadow, but recognize where the light source is, which is behind it. Recognize what the light rays are doing. Are the light rays hitting it directly? Are they hitting it indirectly? Are they not hitting it at all? In this case, the light rays are behind it and they're really being filtered through. And whenever light is being filtered through, it's going to lighten just a little bit, but it's still in the shadow area. Be sure and view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianneMize.com where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.